Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, me. In this series, Freemasonry and Satanism, number 70, part 3 of this book, Secret Societies and Subversive Movements, Nestor Webster. And oh my, I finished that one chapter I started in part 2. There's some crazy stuff in this book. Stuff that we should contemplate, be aware of, maybe not even agree and say, I don't believe that, and take a note or two and go look it up. Because if this stuff is true, we're in trouble. And apparently what's happening in the world right now matches identically what's in this book. The New World Order, the New Age, destroying Christianity. Patriot Act, taking away our rights, slowly moving forward with Agenda 21, now called Agenda 2030, and so much more. So I think I'll just jump in here and continue reading, and let's hope it makes some sense. Like I said, if it's true, it's concerning. So page 382, the truth is, of course, that kindness to any portion of the human race brings its own reward in the form of moral improvement in the individual or nation that performs it. You agree with that? Being kind is a good thing for a person or a nation. But no more benefit attaches to philanthropy. Can't say that word. I have some speech impediments on words. So philanthropy, charity, when exercised towards the Jew than towards the Chinaman. That's what it says here. I would urge then that the Jewish problem should be approached neither in the spirit of superstitious pro-Semitism nor in the bitter spirit of anti-Semitism. So I guess a lot of our politicians and even a lot of the ministers and church leaders who are pro-Zionist are superstitious about some of the things that Jews say that God said, that anybody who is anti-Israel will be punished and anybody who is pro-Israel will be rewarded. But it gets a much more interesting than that, what we're going to be reading on this video. But with a sanity worthy of an enlightened age, to quote again the words of Bernard Lazare, let us inquire what part the Jew, considering his spirit, his character, the nature of his philosophy, and his religion may now be taking in revolutionary processes and movements. We know the United Nations is an occultic organization. Look up the meditation room, look at the symbols. Just like the all-seeing eye and the pyramid on the back of the U.S. $1 bill. Is there, then, any evidence that there exists amongst Jewry today an organized conspiracy having for its objects world domination and the destruction of Christianity, such as the famous 1924, this book was written, Protocols of the Elders of Zion suggest? We've been going over the Protocols of Zion in my previous videos. I've read them thoroughly. The theory of a Jewish world conspiracy does not, of course, rest on the evidence of the protocols. And if you've been watching my current videos, there's a lot of books that American Jew who moved to Israel, that book, the Professor Higgins and the Jewish Utopia, Robert Williams, The Ultimate World Order, Text Mars, Henry McCow, PhD in Canada, author, Illuminati, the cult that hijacked the world. And remember, a lot of Jewish people are not into the Talmud, the book that details all the evil things they are to do to us goyim, cattle. Gets ugly. You start looking at this stuff. And they do come down hard on anybody who tries to talk about it. But with the internet now, a lot of people are talking about it. So I suspect they would have to take out a lot of people who are becoming aware. On the internet, it's called the Great Awakening. Here we go. Times article. It's the Times magazine. One would imagine that with the so-called refuting of this one document, the whole case against the Jews had collapsed, and that the anti-Semites must be forever silenced. So back there in 1924 or previous, Times said the Protocols of Zion were refuted. Not real documents, faked. But we know from my videos and what's going on in the world, those protocols are being carried out to a T. And there are many other books and rabbis and people who have exposed all the goings-on. Wesley Clark, the general, after 9/11, said a Pentagon insider said that all the countries in the Middle East, 7 of them, they had plans to overthrow them. All surrounding Israel. And now we know by watching the news, we don't even need the protocols. We don't even need these books. We know the people are fleeing the Middle East, going to Europe and the United States, fleeing for their lives. But the arguments of the Jews and their friends go further than this. Not only do they claim that there is no Jewish conspiracy, but no world plot of any kind. And I know whenever I do any comments or on some of my videos, people accuse me of being insane. Tell me to go back on my medication. But that's what they do to people who learn the truth. They even lock them up in asylums and keep them sedated with drugs. Of course, a lot of people get killed. It's a big plan, the New World Order. And they say that there's no evidence to suggest it. George Bush is saying it. The Pope is saying it. Kissinger's saying it. The guy indicted for war crimes around the world. Genociding people. Mr. Lucian Wolff, in his earliest refutation of the protocols, derided the exponents of the secret society danger as vehemently as he derided the perficious author of The Jewish Peril. I'll have to get that book, The Jewish Peril. It will be, in fact, always be noticed that references to the Illuminati meet with almost as much resentment from the Jewish press as allusions of a directly anti-Semitic character. So we know that the Freemasonic Blue Lodge handbooks definitely talk about King Solomon and the temple in Israel, and is a Jewish-created organization where the Jewish hierarchy operates behind the scenes. The Illuminati, Rosicrucians, Hollywood, Church of Satan, occultism, Kabbalah, all of a highly suspicious Jewish character. And I don't mean all the Jews, of course, because many Jews are in places where they either converted to Christianity or were Old Testament type believing Jews, Torah maybe. They got along with people, but the Talmud book, the Talmudic Jewish people, the Zionist Jewish people, the Bolsheviks, the Yiddish, another whole ball game. Some people that have some strange beliefs on how to treat the rest of us, and that they should rule the world. Barrel, who refused to incriminate the Jews, and D. Mallet, who never referred to them at all, are denounced by Mr. Lucian Wolff no less as scaremongers than Gronot des Marseillais of Canterbury. To suggest that any hidden hand, there we go, hidden hand, we've seen those pictures with the hidden hand. Look up hidden hand in images, and you'll see a lot of people in high places throughout history hiding one hand halfway inside the jacket, which is a symbol for the hidden hand. Napoleon. Obama. I got showing you pictures of that. To suggest that any hidden hand had ever been at work in the world is to raise immediately a storm of Jewish protest. Well, everybody knows they're trying to destroy capitalism and Christianity. And we all know about sustainability, faking global warming, faking an ice age, as Holder said. Now they use climate change, and I keep saying, when does the climate not change? Throughout history, they got graphs, peaks and lows and highs, and freezes and warm periods. Since time began. So we have to worry about normal behavior of the weather. I suspect it's all a tool to get the New World Order in the New Age, and why they're doing all the gay agenda, pansexual, adultery, bisexuality, and everything else. Yet intelligent Jews must be well aware that whether secret societies have contributed as much to past revolutions as these writers believed, their existence and their very real influence is not a matter of surmise, but of historical fact. I mean, Karl Marx, in the Russian Revolution, the Bolsheviks, we know the Jewish people were involved in revolutions. No one ever warned the British public more distinctly of the danger they presented or the role the Jews were playing in them than Disraeli, whose famous words have been quoted so frequently in this connection. The world is governed by a very different personages from what is imagined by those who are not behind the scenes. And as we all know, whether it's Bush or Obama, the puppet masters behind the scenes tell them what to do. And Bush and Obama have been doing the exact same thing. But they try to fool us and make us think there's a difference. What is this but a clear recognition of the hidden hand? That's what it says here on 383. Why then is Disraeli not included with Barral, Robinson, D. Mallet, Des Mosenecks, or Mr. Wolff's list as scaremongers? It is because Disraeli pointed the morale that Jews being so dangerous, they should be employed. We know in high places all over the world, that's where the Jews think that they belong. And if they're in charge, which they have been, I've said this before, then that means they are responsible for the destruction that's been going on worldwide for hundreds of years. Yes, no, they're in charge, they're responsible. If then leading Jews persist in vilifying everyone who reiterates the warnings uttered by so eminent a member of their race, it is inevitable that they should come to be suspected of having some interest in suppressing further revelations. Why do they have the Anti-Defamation League? What other culture, race, color, nation, country has an Anti-Defamation League? Who are the biggest political action committee PACs in the United States but the Jewish PACs? What country from 1947 to 75 got 90 billion, Israel, while the rest of the world combined didn't get 90 billion? Go look that stuff up. Setting all such evidence as the protocols completely aside, let us examine the reason for believing in the existence of a Jewish world conspiracy. And again, I don't believe all Jews are in on this, and a lot of Jews, where I've got my information, Rabbi Marvin Antelman and Henry Macau and others, have written books warning us. and I believe the Jews killed in Germany were probably Sephardic, good Jews, either turned to Christianity or Orthodox Old Testament, not Talmudic. Three different books we can discuss. The Old Testament, the Torah, and the Talmud. And the Talmud has some horrible stuff in it. So the Talmudic Jewish people have to be a little deranged in the head if they believe and act what that book says to do. Now we know for certain that the five powers before referred to, the Grand Orient Masonry, Theosophy, Helena Blavatsky's religion, Pan-Germanism, international finance, and social revolution have a very real existence and exercise a very definite influence on the affairs of the world. Here we are not dealing with hypothesis, but with facts based on documentary evidence. We know in each case the names of many of the leaders, their meetings of organization, their centers of direction, and the aims they are pursuing. But with regard to the Jewish power, we cannot proceed with the same certainty. The very existence of such a power, in the sense of a united and organized body of Jews working for the destruction of Christianity. See, it's not my imagination, it's in this book. I'm doing book reviews. I'm not accusing anybody. I'm reading the book and learning like everybody else. So the organized body of Jews working for the destruction of Christianity. And the existing social system is a matter of speculation and not a known fact. Investigations into the activities of such groups as the B'nai B'rith, the Perel Zion, and the Jewish Bund, and the Witterbund, or Jewish International Union of Socialists, much might, however, throw light on this question. The phone ringeth. Gotta pay attention to the day job to pay the bills. I don't want to wind up homeless. All right, so the five powers before referred to, the Grand Orient Masonry, Theosophy, Pan-Germanism, international finance, and social revolution, have a very real existence and exercise a very definite influence on the affairs of the world. And now, this was 1924. 2015, we're very much aware of what's happened since then with the Rothschild Jewish control of the Federal Reserve, crashing the system 8 or 9 times, taking in everybody's properties for pennies on the dollar, the confessions of an economic hitman, John Perkins, talking about government officials and leaders, sending him around the world, talking governments into borrowing millions and billions, knowing they would really fail and crash and go through bankruptcy. So much more. World War I. This happened before this book, before this book was written, but World War II happened after. And the Pools wrote a book, Who Financed Hitler? And that would have been the banksters, the Jewish people, the financiers. Here we are not dealing with hypothesis, but with facts based on documentary evidence. We know in each case the names of many of the leaders, their methods of organization, their centers of direction, and the aims they are pursuing. You got Bilderberger groups, Club of Rome, Bohemian Grove. Yeah, we know what they're doing. Hollywood. They control all our politicians with the PACs. Defamation League. They threaten our political leaders if they don't follow the line. Even the church leaders have turned towards the dark side and are Zionist, pro-Israel. Telling the Christians to submit, even suggesting that we don't have to believe in Jesus anymore. Banning Christmas, but celebrating Halloween. Oh my. But with regard to the Jewish power, we cannot proceed with the same certainty. The very existence of such a power, in the sense of a united and organized body of Jews working for the destruction of Christianity, and the existing social system is still a matter of speculation and not a known fact. I read this already. Investigations into the activities of such groups as B'nai B'rith, Paleo Zion, Jewish Bund, and the Weaver Bond of the Jewish International Union or Socialists might, however, throw much light on this question. The custom of printing their pidgin German, known as Yiddish, in Hebrew characters provides the Jews with a more or less secret code by means of which their ideas and aspirations are concealed from the great masses of the Gentiles. All right, moving on, page 384. Whether then the Jewish power is unified or not, Jews are to be found cooperating with, if not directing, all the five powers of which the existence is known. Thus Jews have long played a leading part in the Grand Orient Masonry, Freemasonry, all the different lodges, and predominant in its upper degrees. As we have already seen, Freemasonry is always said to be subversive in Roman Catholic countries. I noticed that they were having trouble establishing a foothold in Mexico. Where Freemasonry is subversive, Jews are usually less conspicuous in the revolutionary movement than in countries where Freemasonry is either non-existent or constitutional. Thus, in France, the Masonic peril is much more generally recognized than the Jewish peril. So when the Masonic lodges are present, the Jews get to operate behind the scenes and you don't see much of them. In Italy, the Freemasons have been banned by Mussolini, but the Jews are not regarded by him as a particular danger. In Portugal, it was the Freemasons rather than the Jews who made the recent revolutions. In Hungary, however, the revolutionaries were principally both Jews and Freemasons. On the other hand, in England, Germany, and America, where Freemasonry is not subversive, yeah, right, the Jewish question is more apparent. So they keep the if you read the Freemasonic lodges or watched my videos, you know that they do keep out of the limelight. Don't make any really claims on any big issue, take one side or the other. They're in operations. They don't want to attract any attention. The Jewish question is more apparent. All this would suggest that either Freemasonry, had to get a drink of water. All this would suggest that either Freemasonry is the cover under which the Jews, like the Illuminati, prefer to work, so that where the cover is not available, they are obliged to come out more into the open, or that the Grand Orient Masonry is the directing power which employs Jews as agents in those countries where it cannot work on its own account. The preponderance of Jews in the ranks of Aurora has already been indicated, and also the influences of the Jewish Kabbalah in the teaching of theosophy and Rosicrucianism. Everything I've been saying in all these different books I go over seems to be matching the truth. But it is important that the latter point should be further emphasized in connection with the craze for occultism that is spreading through society. 1924. occultism was spreading through society. They were destroying Christianity. TV programming, cartoons, all the tools available to them, the media, radio, even paying off our preachers and ministers, sending infiltrators into the Catholic Church to discredit it. Reagan had said, Reagan, I don't think it's President Reagan, Reagan, the Kabbalah is the key of all occult sciences. Therefore, in this field of experiment, the Gentile must always be at a disadvantage with the Jew. If we Gentiles, what they call us, I don't think we're cattle or animals, but if we're not into witchcraft, we don't have any idea what they can do, because they are into witchcraft. Think about it. They have an unfair advantage if they're using witchcraft on us. Maybe you think you're thinking of something, and you're going to do something, and somehow it's some kind of magical spell. And with today's high technology, mind control by the TV, cell phone, radio, laptops, they can, cameras on every street corner, credit cards, all this stuff. They can manipulate us at will. And they study that science. And they have been studying it thoroughly for the last 100 years, no doubt about it. Ever since Freud. So the Gentile must always be at a disadvantage with the Jew. Indeed, Mr. Waite, who certainly cannot be suspected of anti-Semitism, goes so far to suggest that the gift of ceremonial magic was the answer to Jewry, the answer of Jewry to Christendom as a counterbalance. So they're using magic, got mosquitoes out here, to destroy Christianity. To centuries of persecution, it would be well if every Gentile who has ever attempted to dabble in occultism were to realize the source of the inspiration. So you got to be careful when you get into this occultism. Demonic beings, satanic stuff, hearing voices. How many people do you know, that I know, that says, oh, they can talk to some spirit guide, some master, talk to Jesus, and he talks to them. Who are they really talking to? Scary? The role of Jews in social revolution, and particularly in Bolshevism, hardly needs comment. This was 1924, and we know now that it's said that 100 million Christians and other good people were killed during those 10 years after the revolution. And in a lot of countries where they have these revolutions, the first thing they do is try to disarm everybody. Pay attention, people. Hillary said the other day they want to destroy and eliminate the Second Amendment. Pretty soon they're going to want to eliminate the First Amendment, so telling the truth will be a crime. Yet since the Jewish press has chosen to deny this last and very obvious fact, and still persist in setting down to prejudice or anti-Semitism a mere statement of facts, it may be well to quote here a few official statements on the subject which admit of no denial. Now, when I began this research 10 years ago, 11 years ago, on what the heck is going on in the world, that's all I wanted to do. And as an electronic technician, worked at the Space Center, major aerospace company for 10 years with a secret security clearance, 3 years in the Army prior to that, graduated from 2 different colleges. I feel I wanted to know why all my clients in my business were suffering. People losing homes from Argentina to Canada to Germany to the United States, from California to North Carolina. Who was causing all this world turmoil? And as I just said, General Wesley Clark said, the whole Middle East overthrowing all those nations was planned. 9/11 was planned. The school shootings, they're using crisis actors. And it's so bogus it becomes obvious. Go watch some of the videos. It's almost as if these people who say that they're so smart are actually so stupid. First of all, it must be remembered that the founder and patron saint of Bolshevism was a Jew, Karl Marx, and that it was anarchist Buckham, not the Duke of Northumberland, who described him and his following in the International as the German Jew Company and the Red Bureaucracy. It is therefore not surprising that when the Red Bureaucracy, avowedly founded on the doctrines of Marx, came to be set up in Russia, it should have been largely led by Jews. This is what the official British white paper has to say on the matter. Extract from report from the Netherlands Minister of Petrograd on the 6th of September 1918, forwarded to Sir Finlay at Christiania to Mr. Balfour. There's Mr. Balfour again, the one who made an agreement with the Rothschilds. If they supported England, who was losing the war with Germany, with money, and brought America into the war, England would try to give them the land of the Palestine people. What a plan they had in secret, unbeknownst to the rest of us. But these Jewish leaders bent on controlling in the whole world. And as the Georgia USA Guidestones say, eliminate 85% of the population, murdering them probably. So anyways, in this extract from report to Mr. Balfour, I consider that the immediate suppression of Bolshevism is the greatest issue now before the world. Remember, they killed 100 million people when they took over Russia. Not even excluding the war, which is still raging, World War I. And unless, as above stated, Bolshevism is nipped in the bud immediately, it is bound to spread in one form or another over Europe and the whole world, as it is organized and worked by Jews who have no nationality and whose one object is to destroy for their own ends the existing order of things. Then we know after this, when they took over Russia, they created communism. They control the Illuminati, which is just another branch of the Freemasonic lodges. They control the Freemasonic lodges. They control our churches in the United States. They control the Vatican, the Jesuits. They think they've already taken over the world, and they have to take away the guns from the American people before they can actually announce that they own the world. And there's going to be new laws for living because of sustainability. No air conditioning, no cars. Not going to be pleasant if they have their way. Mr. Alston of Lord Curzon quoted statement from British Council in Eckenberg, January 23, 1919, page 385 in this book. The Bolsheviks can no longer be described as a political party holding extreme communistic views. They form a relatively small, privileged class which is able to terrorize the rest of the population because it has a monopoly both on arms and of food supplies. That's why they've combined all these stores and farming and taken over farms and crashed the economy to get the farms. They control the arms and food supplies, and they do have a plan. So this guy said in 1919, this class consists chiefly of workmen and soldiers and includes a large non-Russian element such as the Letts and the Estonians and Jews. The latter are specifically numerous in high post. And as we know, since Bush and Obama, all their czars have been leading dual citizenships, Zionist, Jewish people, whose loyalties are to Israel. Make no mistake about it, that's one of the things. These international Jewish people, not all Jewish people, Some Jewish people are patriotic and pro-America. Or if they're over there in England, they're pro-England. Wherever. But that's a small portion, because these Zionist, Talmud, satanic Jewish people put a thumb on them too, suppress them. Lord Kilmarnock to Lord Curzon, quoting information by a Frenchman from Petrograd, February 3rd, 1919. The Bolsheviks comprised chiefly Jews and Germans who were exceedingly active and enterprising. The Russians were largely anti-Bolshevik, but were for the most part dreamers, incapable of any sustained action, who now, more than ever before, were unable to throw off the yoke of their oppressors. Makes one wonder, can we throw off the yoke of our oppressors? In this United States and even Europe, this New Age, Agenda 21, coming Agenda 2030, sustainability, global warming, sky spraying, economic threatening to crash the stock market, everybody's 401k, social security checks. People will be forced to take the mark of the beast so they can track everybody like cattle. Is that what's coming? All these books and material I've been reading, that appears to be what's coming. Alright, moving on. Page 386. Mr. Ashton to Lord Curzon, forwarding report from Council at Eckenberg, February 6, 1919. From examination of several laborer and peasant witnesses, low-class people, poor people, I have evidence to the effect that a very small percentage of this district were pro-Bolshevik majority I have evidence to the effect that very smallest percentage of this district were pro-Bolshevik. Majority of laborers sympathizing with summoning of Constitute Assembly. Witnesses further state that the Bolshevik leaders did not represent Russia working classes, most of them being Jews. The Reverend B.S. Lombard to Lord Curzon, March 23, 1919. I have been for 10 years in Russia and have been to Petrograd. Through the whole of the revolution, I had ample opportunity to study Bolshevik methods. It originated in German propaganda and was and is being carried out by the international Jews. The Germans initiated disturbances in order to reduce Russia to chaos. That's why they're having all these disturbances in the United States. They want to reduce the USA into chaos. And they're doing this in European countries too. They printed masses of paper money to finance their schemes. Well, they control our Federal Reserve and can print truckloads of money anytime they want to, without being audited, no inspections and no controls. They can buy anything just by printing out money. The notes, of which I possess specimens, can be easily recognized by a special mark. Well, the weather has driven my video production indoors. So continuing on with Secret Societies and Subversive Movements by Nestor Webster. Explosive information. Who done it? Who's responsible for all this anarchy, chaos, and economic destruction? And murder and mayhem and wars all over the planet. 9/11, school shootings, overthrowing of countries. Who's responsible? As one of the results, the writer adds, all business become paralyzed. Shops were closed. Jews became possessors of most of the business houses, and horrible scenes of starvation became common in the country districts. Remember they had a revolution after World War I, which weakened Russia and put them in a position to send some special agents into Russia, the Bolshevik Jewish people, and kill the Tsar, his family, take over the country, and proceed over the next 10 years, plus or minus, to kill, they say, 100 million Christians and other good people. Makes you wonder, concerning about the USA when they're trying to pull off a revolution. Promoting all this socialism, which is basically communism in disguise, which is basically Illuminati control in disguise, which is, as for all practical purposes, the New World Order. Dictatorship, an elite group of people enslaving the masses. In Hungary, where, as has been said, socialism had been propagated by Jews in the Masonic lodges. See, my series is named Freemasonry and Satanism, and it seems the religion of all these groups, from the Talmud to the Zionists, to the Jesuits, to the Illuminati, Freemasons, Church of Satan, Rosicrucian, Bohemian Grove Club of Rome, and all these elitists like Bill Gates, preferring to see a lot of people eliminated off this planet. So stand in line, as Bill Gates says, and come get your vaccine. And it's none of your business what's in that vaccine or what it'll do to you. Same thing with sky spraying. It's none of your business what they're dumping in your air, what you're going to breathe in. Your water supply puts fluoride in your body. Your toothpaste puts fluoride in your body. And does it really matter that Harvard did a study and it lowers your IQ? Makes you dumber. Is that the intent? It seems that's what it is. They don't need an educated, intellectual society in America or Europe. They need people who are on drugs and alcohol and stress and depressed and medications and loaded up with fluoride and other chemicals. Who knows what they put in the food, the box food, the canned food, your children's cereal, the milk. We don't know. And the people running the show do not have our best interest at heart. Do they? So the outbreak of Bolshevism was conducted under the auspices of the same race. To quote again an official document on this question, the report of the revolutionary activities issued by the Committee of the New York Legislature, headed by Senator Lusk. There goes that phone again. Moving on. There was no organized opposition to Bela Kun. Like Lenin, he surrounded himself with commissioners having absolute authority. Of the 32 principal commissioners, 25 were Jews, which was about the same proportion as in Russia. The most prominent of these formed a directive of 5: Bela Kun, Bela Varga, Joseph Pogany, Sigmund Kufai, and one other. Other leaders were Alpari, Samueli, who had charge of the Red Terror and carried out the torturing and executing of the bourgeois, the business owners, the wealthy people, especially the groups held as hostages, the so-called counter-revolutionists and peasants. Do you hear me? We've discussed in my previous videos, more than 90% of the czars and the people in our governments right now are these Jewish dual citizens, likely, Zionists with their allegiance to Israel, here in the U.S., the same situation that was executed in Russia, where they carried out torturing and executing of the bourgeois, the business owners, shop owners, landowners, farmers, especially the groups held as hostages, the so-called counter-revolutionists and peasants. We got FEMA camps popping up all over the USA, governments buying hollow point bullets, Jade Helms dispersing troops and equipment all over the USA, and we're reading about the historical event in Russia and other countries, the communist, and people just don't believe that it could happen here. It is happening here. They've all but eliminated Christmas. Meanwhile, down at the local shopping mall, gigantic tents are set up 2 months in advance for Halloween. So goblins and goblins and monsters are in, but peace-loving Jesus is out. Huh. You could only be the devil to be planning this. It's a bit crazy, you think? So I did have some notes here I highlighted. On this point, see also a very interesting pamphlet from Behind the Veil, published by Victor Hornietsky, Budapest, 1920. Remember, this book was written in 1924. So we certainly have been warned by many books I've been going over. We are being warned. You know, I've been trying to tell so many people about all this. So has a lot of other people. Alternate websites, net magazines, right in the public view. The propaganda in the news, the chaos and anarchy and murder and mayhem and theft in the Middle East, overthrowing the Ukraine. We all know. But we choose just to ignore it and hope it'll go away. All right, and also Madame Cecilia Tomei, The Diary of an Outlaw, 1923. So where I get all these books is when I read books and they have citations on the bottom, I go look these books up, buy these books, and then I make more videos. Revolutionary Radicalism, Its History, Purpose, and Tactics, with an exposition and discussion of the steps being taken and required to curb it, being the report of the Joint Legislative Committee investigating seditious activities, Field, April 1924 and 1920, in the Senate of the State of New York, Albany, J.B. Lyon Company, Printers, 1920. The evidence is here. The same report publishes a list of 76 men persecuted by the committee on the charge of criminal anarchy in America at the beginning of 1920, in which the overwhelming majority are seen by their names to be Jewish. You hear me? These names speak for themselves and are published without comment on an obvious nationality of the majority of the persons concerned. So far indeed does the Luce Committee appear to have been removed from anti-Semitism, that nowhere in the vast report running 2,008 pages, its attention drawn to the preponderance of Jews concerned in the revolutionary movement, except in one passage on Hungary quoted above. So all these 76 men were prosecuted by the Committee on Charge of Criminal Anarchy in America, and overwhelming majority names were Jewish, but they chose not to point that out in the report. The Lusk report must therefore be regarded as an absolutely impartial statement of facts. In view of these official data, how is it possible for the Jewish press to pretend that a connection between Jews and Bolshevism is a malicious invention? And of all the anti-Semites, that all Jews are not Bolsheviks and that all Bolsheviks are not Jews is of course obvious. But that Jews are playing a preponderating part in Bolshevism is absurd to deny. And just as the Jews have a preponderance of representation in our government in the USA, and I suspect all over the world in Europe, and of course we know they own the Federal Reserve, control it in secret, can't be audited, and are working to conspire to eliminate Christianity, owning Hollywood and all kinds of other media, propagandizing, mind-controlling the population into a decadent society, destroying our social culture. These are concerning issues. And the preponderance of these people are Jewish. That's a fact. Tex Mars points it all out. Many books point it out. My videos have pointed it out. I haven't been pointing it out. I'm just reading the books. But the further I dig in here, Nestor Webster points it out. The Lusk Report doesn't even mention they're Jewish when they're prosecuting 76 men. Most of them Jewish. An attempt has been made to show that Jews have suffered as much of the rest as the rest of the population in Russia under Bolshevism, and that the Jewish religion has met with the same hostility as the Christian faith. Well, the report I read said all the Christian churches were destroyed, but none of the Jewish temples were destroyed. Doubtless, many Jews have suffered in Russia, since human violence, once allowed to go unchecked, is liable to express itself in various unexpected ways, and the resentment of the Russian people towards the Jews was bound to break out under Lenin, as under the Tsar. Again, a campaign against Christianity inevitably led in Russia, as in France, to a campaign against all forms of religion, and the Jewish Bolsheviks, being atheists themselves, were doubtless as ready as Lambert of the French Revolution to turn against the believers of the faith they had abandoned. So I'm just a bit curious, if they abandon their Jewish faith, how can they still be Jewish? And if they've embraced the Talmud and Kabbalism and occultism, and they're into magic and witchcraft, that's a religion, isn't it? A religion of destruction, perversion. Yet that the Jewish religion suffered to the same extent as Christianity, or that any organized campaign was conducted against it by the government, is effectively disproved by the lamentations of professing Jews on the death of Lenin. In my highlights notes on the bottom here, among those who predominantly showed their profound grief at the death of Lenin were Jews, and not merely Jews by origin, but conforming Jews. Children from Jewish schools, we learn, joyed in the procession, while the Hebrew art theaters sent a banner with the inscription in Hebrew, "You freed the nations. You will be remembered forever." This is Lenin, communism. In addition, Rabbi Jacob Mays of Moscow, the Jewish Relief Committee of that city, and other Jewish bodies sent telegrams of condolences, while the Association of Jewish Authors issued a special memorial magazine in Yiddish dictated to the memory of Lenin, Jewish World, for January 21, 1924, Patriot magazine for April 26, 1923, May 3rd, 1923. Just information in the book. Indeed, as is generally recognized, the fall of the Soviet government, this was the Revolutionary War in 1917, must mean the downfall of the Jews from a position of privilege they now occupy. Then in our own country, Jews are playing a part in the background of Bolshevism is again evident. The Patriot recently published a series of articles giving inside information on the organization of the revolutionary movement in Great Britain, where it was stated the whole plot was directed by a group of 12 men. The group in turn were controlled by 3 of its members. These 3 men, as the key revealed, were all Jews, so also was the fiend in human form whose psychological perversion produced this plot, and who was one of the group in America consisting of 4 Jews and a Jewish woman, which controlled an outer revolutionary group of 18. The Irish Republican Brotherhood also maintained close relations with a ring of revolutionary Jews in America. Incidentally, it is curious to notice that the language employed in some of the correspondence that has been passed between members of the inner group bears a strong resemblance to that of the Weishstoff Illuminati and his fellow Illuminati. So we're tying all this together, surely. There's no question. I don't think Nestor Webster in 1924 was lying. Jewish influence in the less extreme forms of socialism in this country is no less apparent. If the Labor Party is solidly pro-German, it is also solidly pro-Jewish. Whilst loudly proclaiming pacifism and pressing for the reduction of armaments, it has never uttered a word of protest against the employment of British troops to defend Jewish interests against the Arabs. Sound familiar? In Palestine, the blessed word Mesopotamia must be freely mentioned in connection with the withdrawal of troops from military adventures, but never the word Palestine. Again, the free admission of aliens, and particularly of Jews, into this country has always been one of the principal planks of the labor platform. Even the Jewish capitalist meets with indulgence at the hands of our socialist intellects, who, while inveighing against British owners of property, never include Jewish millionaires in their diatribes. So the socialists attack all of the British owners of property, but never the Jewish millionaires with their propaganda and diatribes. It's because they own the media. They're the ones leading the revolution to destroy the government, to put themselves in high places, and to control the world. This may perhaps throw some light on the question frequently propounded. How can one believe that Jews advocate socialism since they stand to lose everything by it? The fact remains that many Jews do advocate it. After the recent ascension of the Labor Party to the office of the Jewish World observed, the result of the general election in England is regarded as very gratifying by the Hebrew and Yiddish press. The Hebrew journalists in Palestine, as well as the Hebrew and Yiddish organs in Europe and America, express satisfaction at the return to Parliament of men who have repeatedly assured the public of their intentions to adhere to the Balfour Declaration, to give the Palestinians land to Rothschilds, the banksters, to create the state of Israel. How can they give away something that's not theirs? My opinion, and many others. A further reason is advanced by the Jewish Courier for rejoicing at the downfall of the conservative government, namely that the election results have wiped out anti-Semitic remnants in England, for the conservative government does include several members who are far from favorable disposed towards Jews. The indulgence shown to the Jews and the honors piled on them by the conservative statesmen therefore availed nothing to the conservative cause, and the welfare of the whole country was subordinated to the interest of the Jews alone. So the Jews were put in high places, and the Jews had priority over the government's decisions on who they represented. Sounds like United States of America, 2015. It is difficult at first to understand how the program of the Labor Party, even when combined with ardent pro-Semitism, could, however, be in accord with the interest of the Jews, who could have never displayed any hostility toward the capitalist system, while socialism sets out to destroy. Remember, Alan Greenspan said to Congress they were running a program called economic destruction. Look it up and watch him say that on YouTube or see it in writing. And the senator asked Alan Greenspan, won't some people get hurt? And Alan Greenspan said, yes, some people will get hurt. So this economic destruction going on in the United States right now, and for the last 10, 20 years, is indeed intended to eliminate Christianity and to eliminate capitalism and to create a socialist structure with these people in charge. And wait till you hear what I'm going to say next when I do a document review. Indeed, we find the same Jewish paper which rejoiced at the advent of the present government to office, offering birthday congratulations to the richest Jews in this country, whose wealth, it goes on to observe with some complacency, amounts to no less than 12 billion sterling. I'm sure that was a lot of money in 1924. And is constantly increasing apart from the interest that it brings by the huge profits of the concerns in which it is interested. So pretty much now they own or control most of the world's assets, mines, and industry, farming. They've conspired in cahoots with many people and financial institutions, bought off our politicians. Just my observation. The politicians obviously don't represent we the people. Obama health care plan, you can read it after we pass it. Pacific Trade Agreement, you can read it after we pass it. And so forth. Patriot Act. None of this is trying to disarm America, promoting the sustainability, global warming claim, ice age claim, climate change claim, creating all the terrorism, newspapers they own promoting Ebola and plagues, comets, planets hitting the Earth, Fukushima destroying the Pacific, Gulf oil spill destroying the Atlantic. Look up oil spills and you're going to find out there's a lot more of them than you know about. They're destroying our environmental resources. For when some event does happen, we won't be able to eat. Even have plagues in the chicken coops and turkey farms, saying they're having to kill all the chickens and turkeys. It's just, this stuff is systematically going on. Water supplies, fracking. You'd have to be a knucklehead not to see this if you don't want to see it, which normalcy bias is something, a psychological condition that most people have, is they don't want to see this. They don't want to believe this. Then they'll have to deal with it. It would seem then that in the eyes of Jewry, all capitalists are not regarded as monsters who should be mercilessly expropriated. But in considering the war on capitalism, it is essential to bear in mind that capitalists are of two kinds. National industrial capitalists, largely Gentiles, and usually men of brains and energy, who have built up flourishing businesses, and international loan-mongering capitalists, principally through not exclusively Jews who live by speculation. So you got two groups. You got your industrial leaders like Henry Ford and many others, and then you got these loan-mongering capitalists, principally, though not exclusively, Jews who live by speculation. And it has come to my attention that a lot of people who don't have an outward appearance of being Jewish, as we have gone over in many of the books that I've read, has exposed that a lot of the Jewish people pretended to say they were Christians or take the guise of Christianity or something else throughout history. It's been in the documentation of the books I've been reading, if you've been watching my videos. So, who knows? They might be 100% of these evil Jewish people, not to be confused with Christian Jews or even atheist Jews or people who are not in on this, who are trying to battle it. If you look up Zionism in images, you'll see many Jews are opposed to Zionism, as we've seen in the books I've gone over. So to be actually anti-Semite is kind of a problem. You can't be. Some of them are with God and some of them are with the devil. Some of them want to live in peace and equality, and some of them want to have world domination and put their boots on our heads. Molest the children. All kinds of perverted things they're into. I've got the books. As Miss M. George Boudtate has well explained it, from the strictly financial point of view, the most disastrous events of history wars or revolutions never represent catastrophes. The manipulators of money and the weary businessman can make profit out of everything, provided they know beforehand and are well informed. It is certain that the Jews dispersed all over the surface of the earth are particularly favorable situated in this respect. It is significant to notice that the capitalists most attacked by the socialists and pacifists are not those who make profit out of wars and revolutions. Are not those who make profit of wars and revolutions, but those who contribute to the prosperity of the country and provide work for millions of people. Here again, the Jews and the socialists seem to find a point of agreement. It is evident, at any rate, that many rich Jews consider that they have nothing to fear from the threatened capital levy and other features of expropriation. So then they appropriate the wealth from wealthy people. Are we not irresistibly reminded of the passage in the Protocols of Zion, where incidentally the capital levy is specifically mentioned? So the Protocols of Zion, it says this: ours they will not touch, because the moment of attack will be known to us, and we shall take measures to protect our own. So when they do this event, it's going to cause worldwide revolution, martial law, and enslavement of the people, they will know, the Jews who wrote the Protocols of Zion, and they will protect their assets. Just like the stock market when it crashes. By the time it crashes, all these rich elitists have already sold their stuff. That's what crashed it. So they're selling at top prices. By the time the working person, the citizen, the normal person not in the know finds out, the stock market's already crashed. But let us consider further how the socialists plan for the nationalization of all the means of production, distribution, and exchange. The socialist plan for the nationalization of all the means of production, distribution, and exchange might be reconciled even with the interest of Jewish industrial capitalists. The more we examine this magic formula, which is to transform the world into a paradise for the workers, the more we shall see that it approximates to the system of the super capitalists, of which, as Werner Schomburg has shown, the Jews were the principal inaugurators. Socialists are fond of explaining that capitalism began with the introduction of steam. In reality, of course, capitalism is the sense of wealth accumulated in private hands. Has always existed since the first savage made his store of winter food. What socialism really means by capitalism is the modern system of industrialism and distribution in the hands of individuals or groups who, if they happen to be unscrupulous, are able to, by systematic sweeping of the workers, sweating of the workers, bleeding of the consumer, to conduct operations on so large a scale as to crush all competition by the home worker or the small tradesman. Now you know why they want to microchip everybody. Because they're going to be suspicious of everybody trying to break loose from their enslavement. Obviously, however, with the growing demand of the workers for better conditions of life, and the increasing support lent to them by enlightened public opinion, this possibility cannot continue indefinitely. And unless a violent convulsion takes place, the time will come when great industrial magnates will have to contend themselves with moderate profits on their outlay. Thus, although at first sight it might appear that the super capitalist must desire to maintain the existing order of things, if he is far-seeing, he must realize that profiteering under present system conditions must soon cease. You know, when you're reading this stuff, and you know how they run industrial plants and farms and mining operations in third world nations and treat those people like slaves, and why they're trying to bring up the propaganda about sustainability and global warming, can't you see can't we see that these are just excuses for them to gain control and to take away the expense, the cost, or the opportunity for individuals like myself to acquire any wealth or home ownership or anything? They don't want that. It is therefore conceivable that even the Jewish industrial capitalists may see in the nationalization of industry a preferable alternative to the limitation of profits under the private enterprise. The same financial acumen and skill in management which has enabled him to conduct rings and trust in the past would ensure him a place at the head of the nationalized industries, which in effect would be nothing but gigantic trust, nominally under state control, but really, like all state enterprises, in the hands of a few men. And again, you don't have to be a knucklehead, and most people will admit this, but everything the government's in control of seems to be gone awry. A disaster. And what do they want to do? They want more government. More control. Under socialism, the position of these trusts would be rendered impregnable. So they have to microchip everything. They don't want anybody to break free and revolt, counter-revolution. Once they take control, heads will roll. Anybody that they think is a leader, off with their head. For whilst under the present system, any individual or group may set out to break a trust, no such competition would be possible in a state where private enterprise has been made illegal for sustainability, global warming. The man in control of nationalized industries would therefore be able to exercise absolute authority both over the worker and the consumer. Further, if the worker can be persuaded to accept the ultimate scheme of communism, which is compulsory labor, people aren't going to like this. People are not going to like being slaves. In return for no monetary remuneration, so you're not going to get paid, but merely a daily ration of food and other necessities of life whenever state officials decide that he requires them, the director of labors, like the overseers in a slave plantation, will be able, as in Russia, to impose any conditions they please. Sustainability, global warming. Will the people just lay down and let them do this? The Jews may well hope to occupy these posts, not only because of their aptitude for organization on so large a scale, but because of their international relations would facilitate the sale and barter of goods between countries. The cohesion which exists among them would speedily lead to the monopolization of all the higher posts by members of their race. It is idle to dismiss such a possibility as foolish. This is what happened in Russia. It is happening in Germany today. And here then we may find perhaps the inner meaning of a remark attributed by a prominent member of the Labor Party, that under socialism, a certain well-known Jewish capitalist might be worth 10,000 sterling a year. Lenin expressed much the same idea when he said that the Russian Soviet Republic might require 1,000 first-class specialists to direct the work of the people, and that the greatest stars must be paid 25,000 rubles each, and even 4 times that sum, supposing it were necessary to employ foreign specialists for that purpose. But the Jewish capitalist doubtless sees further that in England, as in Russia, this condition of things would be merely a temporary phase, and that the institution of socialism, by dispossessing the present Gentile owners of their wealth, it says right here, dispossessing the present Gentile owners of their wealth and property, would pave the way for the Jewish and German plutocracy. So they got Agenda 21, they got the United Nations, they got the gay agenda, they got sustainability, they got global warming, terrorism, confiscation of guns they're trying to do, eliminate the First Amendment, free speech. They're going to do everything in their power to take away the freedoms of the peoples of the world and enslave them. 1924. In Russia, wealth has been altogether destroyed. It has simply changed hands. In Russia, wealth has not been altogether destroyed. It has simply changed hands, and a class of new rich has sprung up, which meets with no hostility from the professed advocates of equality. Those Jews who see in the Christian intelligentsia, intelligent people, the main obstacle. So the Jews see in the Christian intelligent people as the main obstacle to their dream of world power. Therefore, naturally, find in the promoters of class warfare their most valuable allies. For the Christian intelligent person is the sole bear to the enslavement of the people. Most of the movements to redress the wrongs of the workers from Lord Shaftesbury onwards have arisen not amongst the workers themselves, but amongst the upper and middle class. Once these were swept away, an iron bureaucracy would have the workers at their mercy. I do not say this is the plan, but I do say that such a hypothesis provides a reason for the otherwise unaccountable indulgence displayed by socialists everywhere towards wealthy Jews, and at the same time for the huge funds the socialists appear to have at their disposal. If big financiers are not at their back, I repeat, where does all the money come from? It seems unlikely that it can be derived from the British owners of wealth and property whom the socialists are openly out to dispossess. The only body of financiers that can therefore be suspected of contributed towards this end is the body known as international finance, which is mainly, though not exclusively, Jewish. The influence of the Jews in all five great powers at work in the world, 5 great powers at work in the world: Grand Orient Masonry, Theosophy, Pan-Germanism, international finance, and social revolution, is not a matter of surmise, but of fact. Let us now examine what part they are playing in the minor subversive movements enumerated in the earlier chapter. Freud, the inventor of the most dangerous form of psychoanalysis, is a Jew. In this connection, the eminent American neuropsychiatrist, before quoted, writes, not only the Freud theory of psychoanalysis, but a considerable quantity of the pseudo-scientific propaganda of that type has for years been emanating from a group of German Jews who live and have their headquarters in Vienna. Told you they're into mind control and understanding the psychological reactions and abilities of the human body. They intend to control everybody. From its inception, psychoanalysis has been in the Jewish hands. There are not half a dozen physicians in the whole world recognized as authorities in this field, whose names are identified with this movement, who are not Jews. So there's not even 6 men in the world who are into psychoanalysis who are not Jews. All of them are the Jewish people. This may have been an accident, but nevertheless is a fact. So they're into psychoanalysis. And if anybody talks about the things that Nestor Webster talks about in all these other books, even Henry Ford was attacked. They say they're insane or mentally challenged, need to be locked up. In most of Europe, it's a crime. Not only persecuted, but prosecuted. I have already referred to an earlier chapter to the question of degenerate art defined in a circular in the New York Herald as the deification of ugliness. The originators of this cult are here described as a group of Satan worshippers in Paris. So this cult of ugly art is propagated by a group of Satan worshippers. And the dealers by whom the movement was propagated as Germans, but we note amongst the leaders of this exhibition, at which these works of art were displayed several Jewish names. Of one well-known Jewish art critic, one known Jewish artist, a critic has written. So they're promoting this ugly art, this perverted art. Were these works the product of a man who had an imperfect control over his material? So somebody who didn't know how to use a chisel and a hammer, or paint very well, who in stumbling towards the light dwelt inevitably upon much darkness, who sought for beauty and found ugliness. So if somebody was actually trying to paint somebody in the dark, you can imagine how that would come out. Who looked for purity and found filth, even then one might be silent and hope for better things to come. So like I said, if some artist was in the dark, had old brushes, and maybe was drunk and he created a piece of art and it looked ugly, we'd understand and say, well, maybe he'll do something better. But wait. But here, apparently, unless my whole reading is ludicrously wrong, he delights in the deformity and glories of degradation. He brings to the world an art of new gospel, a black gospel, a gospel in which everything is to be inverted and distorted. Well, that's going on in the world right now. Bruce Jenner getting switched over to Caitlyn Jenner. And you know how much 60 years old that man is? And I don't know about you, but all the pictures I see that he's modeling in those magazines is kind of creepy. All these things they're doing. Lady Gaga carrying by crowds of people in dirty underwear. Madonna doing all her escapades on stage like a pole dancer at an adult club. All of them. Whatsoever things are hideous, whatsoever things are evil report, whatsoever things are sordid, if there be any unhealthiness or any degradation, think of these things. So this was about a well-known Jewish artist, a critic wrote. What better resume could be given to that tendency? A perversion denounced by the prophet Isaiah in the words, "Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness." An organ of the Jewish press with the sense of solidarity which always rallies Jews to the defense of their compatriots, however culpable, immediately detects in the critic's expression an opinion of insidious work of an anti-Semite. It is lamentable to think of the undue proportion of young Jews who have joined the revolutionary or sham modern art movement in this country. 1924, Nestor Webster. Secret Societies and Subversive Movements. The same influence will be noticed in the cinema world, the movies, where, as has already been pointed out, history is systematically falsified in the interest of class hatred and everything that can tend, while keeping within the present law, to undermine patriotism or morality, is pressed upon the public. And the cinema trade is almost entirely in the hands of the Jews. In the drug traffic, Jews are playing a prominent part here and in America. An eminent New York doctor writes to me as follows. Members of the Federal Narcotics Squad, attached to the Treasury Department and having the function of enforcing the provisions of the Harrison Act, have long been convinced that there is a direct relation between radicalism and narcotism. You think? That's how the CIA was involved in the drugs, supplying them, and the propaganda by these people were creating the hippie movement, love and get stoned. They wanted everybody not to pay attention to what they were planning. Meanwhile, they lived in big mansions and drove Mercedes and all that. They were playing with our minds, thinking we were fighting the Vietnam War, getting everybody to be in the love movement. I'm reminded of the games and stuff, the cartoons that they give children watch. They're mind controlling everybody. From 7 to 10 years ago, this was thought to be a manifestation of pan-germ propaganda. Activity was and is still is greater on the part of the distributors and peddlers than is to be accounted for by the large profits, according to their story. Curiously enough, the traffic largely stopped for several weeks following the signing of the armistice. I was raising 2 young boys, and they came home from school, and they got into that Pokemon thing. And you ever see Pokemon? Those little ugly little characters. And now today, if you walk out to the supermarket, shopping centers, you see humans almost look like the little Pokemons. This propaganda, mind control works. And they're portraying all the Arabs to be evil, Assad in Syria to be the devil, and we're reading here who really are the culprits. We can see who the culprits are by who is dominating in the Middle East. Israel. Look at the maps of Israel since 1946. They got them on Israel Zionism sites, Yahoo. And they're gaining more land, and they want more land, and more people in Aliyah are moving there. They want a nation the size of almost the United States. And there's maps of this on the Zionism image sites, Zionism picture sites. But they don't want you to know that. They want to point the finger over there. And then they point the finger at the Christians, and they point the finger at the Muslims. They don't point the finger at themselves. They try to destroy anybody who points a finger at the real culprits. The Zionists, Talmud, Illuminati, Freemasonic, Rosicrucian, Jesuits, Hollywood, Church of Satan, Kabbalah, witchcraft, Bohemian Grove, Club of Rome, Trilateral Commission, Council of Foreign Relations, Bilderberg Group. It could go on for a while. In one instance, 7 regularly licensed physicians of the East Side, all Jews, were arrested in succession during the summer of 1920 for illegitimate use of narcotic prescriptions. And every office raided had large quantities of radical literature. Such associations were not uncommon. So these Jews that were arrested in 1920 for illegal use of narcotic prescriptions, and every office raided had large quantities of radical literature. As to the distribution, a recent investigation by Hearst magazine definitely revealed the fact that the illegitimate distributors were almost invariably of the Jewish race, and that the peddlers were exclusively Jewish and Italian. Enough, then, has been said to show that whether as agents or as principals, Jews are playing a part in all the subversive movements. Who was that guy they put in charge of Homeland Security? Dual citizen. People in charge of the Federal Reserve, dual citizen with Israel. So we have people more loyal to Israel in charge of our institutions, advising our presidents, controlling everything. And Obama having let go many military leaders. Why? Government, Social Security, all kinds of organizations buying bullets and more things. Why? A Christian Jew, no renegade to his race, but deeply concerned for their future development, said recently to the present writer, the growing materialism amongst Jews has made them the most destructive force in the world. This was a Christian Jew. The only hope for them is to accept Christianity. And we know now they banned Christmas, but they got this seven candlestick thing, the menorah, at the White House for Christmas. So the Jewish symbolism is there for Satanism, I guess, for Christmas. Halloween is off the chart for Christmas. But no peace-loving Jesus has been banned. No peace-loving Jesus anywhere, schools, public squares. It's banned by these demonic entities. At present, they are the greatest danger after that Christian civilization has to face. So with that said, I'm going to stop here and go over something else that's concerning to me and maybe to you. If I had a choice, and I guess I do, but a moral choice, I wouldn't do what I'm going to tell you next. Because, I would like to think that everything could get better. But I don't think without knowledge it can get any better. Honestly. Is the Talmud defensible as a holy text? Look this up. Is the Talmud defensible as a holy text? Since I've been reading about this in this book, I thought it might be my responsibility to go do some honest research. So I put Talmud into Yahoo search and started checking out some sites. Oh well, it's a horrible story. Question, has the time come for people of conscience to acquaint themselves with the Jewish Talmud? Talmud Blues. Question. After all that has happened, is it time for everyone to start buying Talmud Compedia? I guess that's like Wikipedia, but on the internet, of the Talmud, and distributing them to friends and family with certain passages marked and highlighted. Maybe a little stocking stuff of this Christmas. How ironic would that be? The people who are trying to destroy Christianity, and we were starting to give out the book that describes the destruction of Christianity, describes the destruction and enslavement of non-Jewish people, and giving that out for Christmas to people to learn. And they got a little funny here. I don't know how sure it is, but mandatory reads Barry. So they got George Bush giving Obama some Talmud for dummies. All right, ready? Maybe slip one in a mailbox of your favorite Christian Zionist. All these preachers and politicians who are Christian Zionists, Israel firsters. Or send copies solely to soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq so they can see what they're fighting for. It could certainly liven up some dull evenings. This writer has a little sense of humor. Who is the writer here? Cassandra of Veterans Today. That's a respected alternate news site. Veterans Today, Cassandra. Go look this document up. It'll give them a little perspective on what they are doing and for whom. You could put up a sign in your yard, automobile, or business displaying a Talmud quote of the week. A Talmud quote of the week. Think of it as a public service announcement. Maybe when they see those words are really in the Talmud, it's not just something perverted you made up. They will experience a sudden paradigm shift, an aha moment, if you will. This is Cassandra writing this. Certain Christian evangelists love to rail against the Quran, a book they've never read, as a source of all the evil in the world. I suspect some of them are unaware of the content of their own Old Testament, which celebrates the slaughter, rape, and pillage of other peoples. But the greatest ignorance of all concerns Judaism's holy books. But the greatest ignorance of all concerns Judaism's holy books. Not the Torah, but the Talmud. And as one commenter emailed me, texted me, on my Yahoo video, commented me. He said, in 20 years, 30 years, there's been no Torah graduated rabbis from the rabbi schools. There's only Talmud graduated rabbis. Talmudic, not Torahic. No Old Testament rabbis, no Torah rabbis, these are good ones, but Talmud. All right, moving on. So, but their greatest ignorance of all the concerns Judaism's holy books, not the Torah, but the Talmud, which is a series of interpretations of early Judaic law written by later rabbinic scholars. So these rabbinic scholars wrote the Talmud. Think of it as an exhaustive collection of technicalities allowing one to get around the law, with the notable addition of directives to persecute non-Jews who are not considered human, and to do so as a religious duty. Directives, when you're listening to me, to persecute non-Jews who are not considered human, and to do so as a religious duty. Surprisingly, the content of the Talmud has not rendered it obsolete or embarrassing to modern Orthodox Jews who study it, revere it, and live by it. And they're in control of our world and our government and our political leaders and our banks and our money and everything. It's the kind of thing that never gets mentioned at Holocaust museums, or the History Channel, or in Hollywood films like The Exodus. Nothing about it on Fiddler on the Roof either. So I thought I'd mention it here for folks who don't know. When an ethnic group has a religious duty to persecute everybody else, that's a pretty big deal. Cassandra writes this article on Veterans Today. In Europe, in certain European countries, Holocaust denial is a criminal offense based on the notion that it promotes racism and genocide. Shouldn't Talmudicism be a crime in those countries for the same reason? Because it promotes racism and genocide? Doesn't the assertion that all the world's non-Jews are animals unworthy of compassion meet that criteria? What are we to do about the venerable holy text that contains evil things? Do we just give them a pass? Meanwhile, back at the ranch, all over the world, they're trying to destroy Christianity, which is a peace-loving book. Jews suffered political setbacks throughout the centuries whenever Gentiles discovered what was in the Talmud. Later versions created for Gentile readers were cleaned up so as to soften and obscure the offending parts. But the original texts are still used without apology by true believers. Look, this picture is creepy. These are these people studying this evil text. You got to have a really warped mind for what I'm going to tell you, to be studying it, believing in it, living by it. And it explains all the horrific things happening in the world, if it's true. This is an issue for modern Jews finally to confront squarely and choose their allegiance. Is the Talmud defensible as a holy text? And can Jews ever be accepted by the world so long as they fail to renounce it and make apology? I believe the answer is no. Israel Shek and others argue convincingly that its genocidal doctrine inspires covert evil, ultimately endangering the non-Talmudic Jews of the world by association. So if people find out what these Talmudic Jews are into and what they think, the average Joe out there on the street's going to hate all Jews. So the Talmudic book is creating the anti-Semitism. The truth is creating the anti-Semitism. I'll tell you what, the Talmud is also endangering the rest of us also. So perhaps a little sunlight is needed to bring this out in the open. Does anyone have a favorite Talmud passage to share? This is what Cassandra writes. I recommend Israel Shenek's excellent Jewish history, Jewish religion, The Weight of 3,000 Years. Well worth reading. My edition has forewords by both Gore Vidal and Edward Said. About the author Cassandra. She has a BA in psychology and also an MSW degree. She does a little writing, a lot of reading, and is an avid gardener. She works occasionally for small publishers in her hometown and dabbles in herbal medicine, medical issues, and natural sciences. Sounds a lot like me. All right, now I'm going to read some comments by people. Cassandra says, do you have any favorite quotes from the Talmud? In her article. So a recent information request by the House of Commons. I'm probably going to have to look at this, where my finger is. So when you go look up the article, this is a comment. So somebody's sending back this website for an information request of the House of Commons. Will give some hint as to what is happening to this country, Britain, when the forces, both military and police, finally realize what they are defending, losing their lives for, will lay down their weapons. So if all the people right now behind the New World Order and New Age cult and our own leaders, like Obama let a lot of the military leaders go because they probably said no, that they wouldn't fire on the American people. If they read the Talmud, probably the people in charge of our government right now would be booted out. All of them. Pro-Zionism. Turned against Christianity. Turned against the people of the USA. Turned against the people in all the European nations. All over the world. These are real dire times, says this one commenter, and none of it by accident. Look how they stand by and watch time and again the outright brutality and collective mental torture we see perpetrated by the Israel machine, lauded by those striking their deals and counting their blood money in the back rooms. A despicable lot they are, all the while commenting the most outrageous blasphemy. See the streets littered with subjects falling on their knees to appease these repulsive family Windsor, dripping in their gold and diamonds, the King and Queen of England, while the good people become more enslaved to those now breaking the very background of this island. Welcome to Britain. You're very welcome to it. One commenter says all that. I like people who think. Get involved and find out what's going on. Because if we all did, we could save our world. Will they lay down their weapons, Cassandra writes. That will be a tough decision, I guess, to lay down one's weapons. is to become one of the others. So if these police they're training, these Jade Helm people, these military, if they resist what they're told to do, they become one of us. On the other side of those weapons. Not a good place to be. Not everyone has the fortitude, the moral character for that. Many will prefer to stay on the side with the power. Reminds me of all the senators, most of them, and representatives, and government leaders, and mayors, and people all over the country, siding with the corporate elitists and the big dollars. They've chosen their side. It is the illusion of this that will keep them safe. What has happened to Britain and Canada, the United States, is very sad and frightening. We badly need Orwell's voice, but he is gone. But I guess the cabal would just smear him as a nut job anyways. They've gotten much better at that since his death. Another writer here says Thomas Jefferson would have endorsed Cassandra's essay. Jefferson wrote to Benjamin Rush. Thomas Jefferson wrote a letter to Benjamin Rush, two Jews. Their system of deism, that is the belief in only one God, but their ideas of him and his attributes were degrading and injurious. Their ethics were not only imperfect, but often irreconcilable with the sound dictates of reason and morality, as they respect intercourse with those around us, and repulsive and antisocial as respecting other nations. They need reformation, therefore it is an eminent degree. Jesus, Jefferson continued, perfected ethics. Jefferson saw in the life and morals of Jesus the grandest example of morality humanity has known. So this is Thomas Jefferson. We got another writer here who says, Doug, I know who my enemy is. Here are just a few of my favorites. You asked for it. So Cassandra said, send me some of your favorite Talmud quotes that's in that Talmud Bible. You're not going to believe this. Talmudic quotes, you can see. You can put pause and read these for yourself. I'll read some. We beg thee, O Lord, inflict thy wrath on the nations not believing in thee. Take away, O Lord, all hope from them. Destroy all foes of thy nation. This is Synagoga Judaica, page 212. I guess it's a Judaic encyclopedia. Menhagen, page 23. And Cratch Chain, 480 Magnum. That's number one. Number two, the teaching of the Talmud stand above all other laws. They are more important than the laws of Moses. Wow. The Ten Commandments. This Talmud's more important than the Ten Commandments. The decisions of the Talmud are words of the living God. Jehovah himself asked the opinion of the earthly rabbis when there are difficult affairs in heaven. Did you just hear what I just said? So Jehovah, their God, consults the rabbis when there are difficulties in heaven with regard to the Talmud. Number three, the decisions of the Talmud are words of the living God, Jehovah himself. I just said that. Ask the opinion of the earthly rabbis. Number four, Jehovah himself studies the Talmud. Standing, he has such respect for that book. God studies the Talmud, or their God, Jehovah. 5, it is more wicked to question the words of the rabbis than those of the Torah. Number 6, it is forbidden to disclose the secrets of the law. He who would do it would be as guilty as though he destroyed the whole world. Remember, all the Freemasonic lodges swear under threat of death, their throat cut or their gut cut open and spilled out if they exposed any of the goings-on in the Freemasonic lodges. All initiates. No matter what you think about Freemasonry, that's what they have to do. Blindfolded, half naked, with a dagger pointed to their chest and their hand on a Bible. So number 6, it is forbidden to disclose the secrets of the law. He who would do it would be as guilty as though he had destroyed the whole world. Makes one wonder what the law is. Here we go. Number 7, every goy, that's a non-Jew, they call it goyim, who studies the Talmud, and every Jew who helps him get it, ought to die. So every goy who studies the Talmud, I'm studying some of this material, and every Jew who helps me ought to die. Their laws, not mine. To communicate anything to a goy, non-Jew, about our religious relations would be equal to killing all the Jews. For if the goyim knew what we teach about them, they would kill us openly. Wow. Oh my God. If a Jew be called upon to explain any part of the rabbinic books, he ought to give only a false explanation. Whoever will violate this order shall be put to death. So if any of their own try to tell us the truth, they will be put to death. A Jew should and must make false oath when the goyim ask him if our books contain anything against them. So they're told to lie and say, "No, there's nothing in there against you." The Jews are human beings, but the nations of the world are not human beings, but beasts. It's got all the references on this document if you go look it up. When the Messiah comes, every Jew will have 2,800 slaves. Jehovah created the non-Jew in human form so that the Jew would not have to be served by a beast. But then above that, they said we are beast. The non-Jew is consequently an animal in human form and condemned to serve the Jew day and night. And it references where this comes from in this document. As soon as the King Messiah will declare himself, he will destroy Rome and make a wilderness of it. Thorns and weeds will grow in the Pope's palace. Then he will start a merciless war on non-Jews and will overpower them. He will slay them in masses, kill their kings, and lay waste to the whole Roman land. He will say to the Jews, "I am the King Messiah for whom you have been waiting. Take the silver and gold from the goyim," the non-Jews, all of us that are not Jews. Number 15, the Gentile girl who is 3 years old can be violated. These people are the ones promoting the pedophilia stuff, the satanic Luciferian doctrine. A Gentile girl can be violated at 3 years old. Remember, Freud was always thinking everything was related to sex. A Jew may violate but not marry a non-Jewish girl. So a Jew can have sex with a non-Jewish girl, but they can't marry him. A Jew may do to a non-Jewish what he can do. He may treat her as a piece of meat. That's what it says here. So they can treat our women that are non-Jews as a piece of meat. A Jew may misuse the non-Jewish in her state of unbelief. Number 19, if a goy, non-Jew, kills a goy or a Jew, he is responsible. But if a Jew kills a goy, he is not responsible. So if you killed a Jew, you would be responsible. But if a Jew killed Jew, there would be no crime. He would not be responsible. It is permitted to kill a Jewish denouncinator everywhere. It is permitted to kill a Jewish denouncinator everywhere. It is permitted to kill him even before he denounces. Thou shalt not do injury to thy neighbor, Bible, but it is not said that thou shalt not do injury to a goy in the Talmud. When you go to war, do not go as the first, but as the last, so that you may return as the first. 5 things as Canaan recommended to his sons, love each other, love the robbery, hate your master, and never tell the truth in the Talmud. A Jew is permitted to rape, cheat, and perjure himself, but he must take care that he is not found out, so that Israel may not suffer. A Jew may rob a goy, that is, he may cheat him in a bill, if unlikely to be perceived by him. So they want to deceive and cheat us. If a goy wants a Jew to stand witness against a Jew in a court of law, and if a Jew could give a fair evidence, he is forbidden to do so. So if I had needed a witness, whatever, and the person was a Jew who saw what happened, the 10th commandment, do not bear false witness. The Jew is forbidden to tell the truth and defend me. But if a Jew wants a Jew to be a witness in a similar case, he may do it. 24. Those who do not confess the Torah and the prophets must be killed. Who has the power to kill them? Let them kill them openly with the sword. If not, let them use artifices till they are done away with. Poison, satanic rituals, curses. Who knows what they can do? Well, it gets a little worse, if that's possible. All property of other nations belong to the Jewish nation, which consequently is entitled to seize upon it without any scruples. An Orthodox Jew is not bound to observe principles of morality towards people of other tribes. He may act contrary to morality if profitable to himself and to Jews in general. Number 28. Should a Jew inform the Goyish authorities that another Jew has much money, and the other will suffer a loss through it, he must give him compensation. How to interpret, number 29, the word robbery. A Goy is forbidden to steal, rob, or take women, slaves, etc. from a Goy or from a Jew. But a Jew is not forbidden to do all this to a Goy. So a non-Jew can't rob, steal, or take a woman slave from another non-Jew or a Jew, but a Jew can do this to a non-Jew anytime. Number 30. On the house of the Goy, one looks as the fold of cattle. So they think our houses we're just cattle. Number 31. All vows, oath, promises, engagements, and swearing, which beginning this very day or reconciliation till the next day of reconciliation, we intend to vow, promise, swear, and bind ourselves to fulfill, we repent beforehand. Let them be illegalized, acquitted, annihilated, abolished, valueless, and unimportant. All vows shall be no vows. Our oaths, no oaths at all. So I guess that's when you promise somebody something, you hold your hand behind your back with your fingers crossed. You're lying. This is in their Bible. This is the Jewish Kol Nodre. All vows, they set this stuff to music and sing it. All vows, oath has been set to a morbid Jewish music and is often heard on the radio. It is sung as a chant at each Yom Kippur. So they sing this stuff, that all their vows are lies and meaningless. So no matter what they promise, over there in Israel to the Palestinians, to the Iranians, to our leaders in government, to us, the people, the Federal Reserve, they own it. It's all lies. Everything a Jew needs for his church ritual, no Goy is permitted to manufacture, but only a Jew, because these must be manufactured by human hands, and the Jew is not permitted to consider a Goyim as human beings. Wow. A Jewish midwife is not only permitted, but she is compelled to help a Jewish mother on Saturday. so helping a wife deliver a baby. And when in doing so, anything which otherwise would desecrate the Saturday. But it is forbidden to help a non-Jewish woman have a baby. Even it should be possible to help her without desecrating the Saturday. But she is considered only as an animal. So us non-Jews, the women having babies, can't be helped to them because the non-Jewish females are considered animals. Is all this stuff true? At the time of the Kolohom, whatever that is, Kohom, the transaction of any kind of business is forbidden. But it is permitted on this holiday of theirs to cheat a goy, because cheating a goy at any time pleases the Lord. It pleases the Lord when these Jews can cheat us. And these are the people trying to destroy Christianity, created communism, created Freemasonry, created the Illuminati, responsible for sustainability, the threat of the global warming, global cooling, created the United Nations, trying to disarm America, control our media, promote making all those TV shows and movies and everything, magazines, billboards, all this mind control. This is how they think. Is this how they think? And of course not all Jews. The Jews are strictly forbidden to cheat their brothers, and it is considered cheating already if 1/6 of the value has been taken away from him. Whoever has cheated his brother has to return it to him naturally. All that only holds towards the Jew. To cheat a goy, he is permitted. He is not permitted to return to him what he has cheated him out of. Because the Bible says, "Thou shalt not cheat thy next brother," but the non-Jews are not our brothers, as has mentioned above. Worse than dogs. So they think we're worse than dogs. I kind of like dogs. Dogs are good animals. Cats, dogs, all animals. I'm a big fan of protecting their environment. All right, so here we go. New York City, Jewish menorahs, those 7 candlestick things, are part of the city displays during Hanukkah, as are Islamic star and crescent during Ramadan. Nativity scenes, Jesus Christ Christmas, during Christmas are banned now, though. However, same thing in Palm Beach, Florida. Yes, Palm Beach. The one of the hanging Chad fame. This commenter writes that. Both are hotbeds of Jewish activism, precursors of what is in store for the rest of America. The Talmud fairly bulges with expressions of animosity for the Goyim. That's you and me. And especially Christianity, which itself turns the other cheek, of course. All right, moving on here. Some more stuff about, I'm not reading everything, but you're getting the point. A Jew must not associate himself with Gentiles. Now that's the law. Now I got to say this. Donald Trump wants to be president. Donald Trump's daughter married a rich Jewish guy, real estate developer in New Jersey, I think. Donald Trump's son married a Jewish female, and they're all converting to Judaism. But they hate non-Jews, and they think they're animals, and they are seriously opposed to any non-Jew animal marrying a Jew. So what's with this, with Donald Trump's kids marrying Jews and converting to Judaism? Is Donald Trump, well, who is Donald Trump? What religion is he? Just a little interesting to think about. The Jews are human beings, but the nations of the world are not human beings, but beasts. Jehovah created the non-Jew in human form so that the Jew would not have to be served by beasts. We read that already. The Jew is not permitted to consider the Goyim as human beings. If you eat with a Gentile, it is the same as eating with a dog. It is the law to kill anyone who denies the Torah. We read that. The Christians belong to the denying ones of the Torah. Jesus Christ was, this is in their Bible, illegitimate and conceived during menstruation, mother of a prostitute. Kala 1b, 18b. Christian birth rate must be diminished materially. Zohar 264b. Jews must always try to deceive Christians. Zohar 160a. Even the best of the Goyim, Christians, should be killed. I'm not reading everything here. If a Jew kills a Christian, he commits no sin. Exterminations of Christians necessary. Make no agreements and show no mercy to Christians. Christians are adulterers. Christians have intercourse with animals. Female Jews contaminated when meeting Christians. See what I'm saying? So how can Donald Trump's children be marrying Jewish people? Unless they're Jewish Christians, but how can you be Jewish Christian? If you convert to Christianity, you're not Jewish anymore. Is it a race? Is it a bloodline? Apparently not, because Donald Trump's kids are going to be Jews. They can't change their blood or DNA. So it's a religion. So if you're converted to Christianity, you can't be Jewish. You're now Christian. Perplexing thinking. Christians are likened to cows and asses. Psalmist compares Christians to beasts. Sexual intercourse with Christians, same as intercourse with beast. The seed, the eggs of a woman, the sperm of man, of Christian valued the same as seed of the beast. Those Jews who do good to Christians never rise when dead. Jews are to hide their hatred for Christians. Christian property belongs to the first Jew claiming it. Keep any overpayment Christians may make in error. It is permitted for a Jew to deceive Christians. Jews may deceive Christians. And it references all this. Here, I'll show it to you. You can pause it. Jews may lie and perjure himself to condemn a Christian. The name of God is not profane when a Jew lies to Christians. Jews may swear falsely by use of subterfuge wording. Jews must always try to deceive Christians. Not only can they, but they must try. Christians who are not Jews, enemies must also die. You can pause this and read it for yourself. Or go to that website, Veterans Today, look up Cassandra's article. A little bit more here and I'm finished with this video. I got this list from Ken Boyle's blog. Another great site for Talmud study. Moving on. Cassandra says on this comment section, "Thank you so much, Doug. I've gotten bogged down in the past few days studying Talmud passages and looking over confusing compilations of them. It's hard to know the correct way to cite something when there are so many different sources and versions of it." Alright, continuing on. Doug says, the commenter, number 15 explains it all. This is straight from hell, plain and simple. The thing is, this sort of thing goes on in their secret communities all the time. It is very seldom reported. I sought the truth, and when I found it, it was much worse than I anticipated. By the way, I posted this on Veterans Today. And the same thing with my research. This truth I've been researching, what the heck is going on in the world, is worse than I anticipated. So what was that 15 thing that Doug said was straight from hell? A Gentile girl who is 3 years old can be violated. There's some sick people running our world. Financiers running the country, picking our presidents. Most of them Zionist Jewish, I guess. Alright, continuing on here. I believe the rule for Jewish girls was that they could not be violated after the age of 3. If it was before the 3rd birthday, the act would do them no harm, but they would still be considered virgins. It's some sick thinking. And another thing here, if I remember correctly, the rule was different for boys, who I think could be violated only between the ages of 3 and 9. The Talmud is not a sacred text. It is pure Satanism. Anton Levi and the Church of Satan and any other organization like them are just red herrings and a distraction to the real deal. The true Church of Satan or Luciferian begins with the Talmud and anyone holding it as sacred. The Luciferians in high places, trying to bring our world under the complete control right now, will more than likely own a copy or two. This is no game. This is no fairy tale. This is a matter of our survival. These people must be exposed and dragged into the light of day. We cannot fear them. We must confront them. Truth is the only sword we own, but it is the most powerful than anything in our arsenal. They bet their lives on you staying ignorant. Cassandra replies, unfortunately, I am aware of what you're talking about. It's a dark world out there. But as far as the non-Jews are aware, the Torah is the holy text. Like I said, many Jews are good Jews and are not into this molesting 3-year-old little girls and boys. And if they have ever heard of the Talmud at all, most believe it is too sacred something, a sacred something or other, and though obscure and inaccessible, and it is sacred to Orthodox Jews, to criticize it would be, well, you guessed it, anti-Semitic. Almost done here. Number 13 comment. Perhaps the best exposure of the evils of the Talmud, Mishnah, and Kabbalah is Michael Hoffman Jr.'s book, Judaism Discovered. Number 14. When in reality the reoccurring theme throughout is just complete silliness, and infantile nonsense. Yet that, my friends, is the whole thing in a nutshell. Now rabbis would love you to think that it is some great and mysterious work, inspired by a God that only they can know and therefore translate. Nope, not the case. It is nothing more than a bucket of hogwash served up by racist megalomaniacs. Learn what it is and what they plan for you, but you are much better served to spend your time ascending into Christ mind, studying the Bible, New Testament, and Jesus. This is where you will find peace and safety. And Cassandra writes back here, Doug, I have no problem with someone being anti-Christ, if that's what he believes. I might be a bit leery of what causes him animosity towards Nazarene, who wanted us to love our neighbor and turn the other cheek, but that's his right as a free-thinking individual. All right, lastly here. This had especially, let's see, this would be Isaac on his deathbed. had pronounced judgment on them according to their works, had especially harsh words for Simon and Levi, who he said were cruel, capricious, and violent. Levite tribe later went on to be the priest class, claiming many privileges for themselves, including receiving tithes from everyone else and not having to work. In the Old Testament, some very interesting reading. And I thought, why don't I just finish this off with a couple pictures? You're not going to believe it. Non-Jews exist to serve Jews. Israel's Shepherdetic leader, Rabbi Ovida Yosef, in his weekly Saturday night sermon, said that non-Jews exist to serve Jews. Now, the Shepherdetic Jews were supposed to be the good ones. Goyim were born only to serve us. Without that, they have no place in the world, only to serve the people of Israel. The global news service of the Jewish people on the video Judaism, Zionism, Satanism, Judaism Exposed Text Mars. You can go watch this video. And the Star of Rephaim, even the Pope on his hat has the Star of David. Like I said, I believe the Vatican has been taken over a long time ago. If it ever was a good institution. It was Rome, after all. And they did take Christianity. And 300 years or so after Jesus was crucified, and proceeded with the Crusades and slaughtering people who wouldn't convert. And here's a Shabbat Rabbi Ginsburg doing the devil sign. And Mr. Ratzinger, the Pope, doing the devil sign. Judgment is coming. That's what they're saying. So will they do something and kill a lot of people and say that God did it? When we know that these people are evil? Bill Gates and his vaccines. Nobody can resist it. It'll be the law. Mandatory. What they want to stick in you. And he wants to reduce the population. Would you let a guy who wants to reduce the population as his biggest threat to mankind put a vaccine in you? And the U.S. military presence overseas is overwhelming. Almost a couple hundred bases. Toppled many countries, puppet masters, costing the U.S. Treasury trillions, and they say we the people owe it. We do not owe it. It was not spent on us. We did not authorize it. We do not control our government. They have infiltrated it. And they keep giving us these fears and threats, one after another. Never ends. So they keep saying this is the last one. Earth's going to end on 2000, 2012, 2015. Comets coming, asteroids coming, World War III. Russia's threatening to nuke us, China's threatening to nuke us. And then we owe all this money. They control everything, so they're responsible for everything. And then, of course, with the sky spraying HARP systems and other things, they're destroying the environment. The little nanoparticles that are falling from the sky, this is a guy with a flashlight at night. You can see the particles falling when they're sky spraying. They're going in your lungs and my lungs. Spraying is occurring all over the earth. What are they dumping? We're learning what the agenda is. Complete world domination and elimination of a lot of people. They only want enough people alive to serve them that they need and they can control. We spray your children, they have no future, have some more Kool-Aid. The government knows they're spraying chemicals in the sky, but the American people? It's almost impossible to get anybody to wake up and talk about this stuff. Even if they can see it, even if they can go out in their backyard, downtown, look up. There's nothing normal about this. But this is what the people do. Just remember who's in charge. These Talmud, Zionists, Kabbalah, witchcraft, banksters, deceiving largely Jewish population of people in charge of everything. Microdust weaponry. Aerosol inhaled into our lungs. David Rockefeller says, some even believe we are part of a sacred cabal, working against the best interest of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists, and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you would. If that's the charge, I stand guilty and I'm proud of it. David Rockefeller, obviously a Talmudic Jewish guy. He's so powerful he can brag about it. Albert Pike, Morals and Dogma, the Freemasonic Bible. The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that the Nazis is destroyed and that the political Zionists be strong. That's the Talmud Bible people. Bolsheviks, Yiddish. Strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel and Palestine. During the Second World War, international communists must become strong enough in order to control Christendom. Everything we've been saying. Albert Pike, the Freemason. The leader of the Freemasons. Right there in a nutshell, everything. Naturally enough, the common people don't want war. Neither in Russia, nor in England, nor in America, nor that, for matter, in Germany. That is understood, but the people can always be brought to the bidding of the leaders. That is easy. All we have to do is tell them they are being attacked. Denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism and exposing the country to danger. It works that way in any country. Hermann Göring. Technology they have, CNN's Jessica Yellen appears on stage for a political debate as a hologram. So they can fool us. And speaking of that, our ministers of the churches now are promoting the Zionist One World Order theme, propaganda. The next Holocaust. These guys will, our own leaders in the Christian churches are traitors to Christianity and to the people. The six-pointed star, the six mini triangles, the six-sided hexagram. So the Israel's symbol on their flag equals 666. Freemasonry and Judaism, the same Egyptian gods. And it shows you this video is Judaism equals Zionism equals Satanism. Judaism exposed, text Mars. Go look up this video. Right there on the bottom of my finger. Hitler or Rothschilds. So the Zionist banksters financed Hitler. financed the United States. Well, used our Federal Reserve to cough up all the money, and we the people owed it. Financed the Russian Revolution. Financed Israel. Financed all the destruction. This is backed up by Walter Langer in his book, The Mind of Hitler, in which he states Adolf's father, Alois Hitler, was the illegitimate son of Marie Anna Strohengruber. Marie was in Vienna at the time. She was serving as a servant of Baron Rothschilds. Jade Helm, Joint Assistant for Development and Execution, Homeland Eradication of Local Militants, 2015. Who's a local militant? People who find out what's really going on? You're not going to believe this. Another one of those pictures like, once we squeeze all we can out of the United States, it can dry up and blow away. Former Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, after leaving U.S. double agent spy Jonathan Pollard's jail cell. Of course, he was re-elected now. And the Fabian Society, operating behind the scenes, taking over the earth, deceiving people, is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Look it up. Read about it. They're all wolves in sheep's clothing. Even President Bush and his daughter. Get this book. And their God, they sacrifice children to. Moloch. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle reporting.